career options if you're working in ad ops. As Jonas said earlier today, you can look at the sideways move. We've also heard comments from other people today as ad ops is dead. Whatever. We're talking about, being brave, making your voice heard. What are the options in front of you? So the careers panelists, and I kind of make up a bit, but I'll just throw in things as and when I see it. The careers panelists have over 50 years of experience collectively working in ad operations. So hopefully these guys know what they're talking about. So as I said, I'm going to hand over to the guys in the sec to introduce themselves, tell them a little bit about why you should care about who they are and why you're listening to them, and perhaps why they care about ad ops as well. And the first person I'll turn to is Mr. Walker. Andrew, do you have a microphone ready?
Hello, everyone hear me? Hopefully I don't blow anyone's eardrums out. So my name's Andrew Walker. I'm the National Digital Ad Operations Manager at News Corp. So I've had a checkered history in ad ops. I started off in sales and absolutely hated it, and then was given an opportunity over in London to get into trafficking. And while I was the only trafficker there, doing late nights, very steep learning curve, absolutely loved it. Got an absolute massive sense of achievement from the day at work, and enjoyed it far more than I did in years of sales. Since then, I've sort of come and gone out of different sort of ad operations sort of roles into the sort of project space, and now sort of come back. So it's the one thing that I guess I've carried all the way through is the skills and the experience that I've had within the ad operations. So we've talked a little bit about, different panellists have spoken a little bit about it today, and you think of the project management skills, you think of the stakeholder management skills, you think of where the role was 10 years ago to the types of people that we've been talking about today that make up sort of ad ops, and it's less around sort of the data entry type stuff, and it's more around how can you sort of think about what the customer needs and how you can sort of manage them as a stakeholder.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Ken.
Hi guys, I'm Kenan. I'm from S2M. So we're a recruitment company that specialises in the digital media and communication space. So everything we're talking about today, I guess. I've been doing this for about 4.5 years, but prior to recruitment, I actually worked on the other side. So I actually worked in IPTV for a broadcaster in the UK. So I kind of get the ad op space from the publisher side as well as the recruitment side. So we work with a lot of the publishers, the ad ops guys. We work with media agencies. So there's a few candidates and clients in the room today. It's good to see everyone. Yeah, if you have any questions after, let me know.
My name's Amy McCormack. I have a company called Human Traffic. I was a trafficker in the 90s and then moved through sales and product management and sales strategy, and then started the company 3.5 years ago because I felt that there was a real gap in the local market in terms of offering a really good local and high quality ad ops solution. And so our business has grown really strongly over that time. And I think that the fact that I've been able to attract some really amazing employees with a lot of experience, and some of the customers that we've kind of brought on board to work with us proves that having a really good ad ops team is a critical function of all of these businesses.
So hi guys, I was just standing up here before, so unless you've got Alzheimer's, you probably know my name is Tim Whitfield. So as I said before, I've got about 14 years experience. The way it started is a bit interesting. Two guys from Optimedia came up to me and said, "Hey, could you please build me an ad server?" And I went, yeah, sure, that's fine, I can do that for you, I can build you an ad server. And then I went home and I Googled, what is an ad server? And then, like I said, I spent all day trafficking the campaigns and all night working on the application. And seriously, guys, I feel for you. I know exactly what you go through each and every day. When it was, trying to upload creative and the screen would time out or something would break and whatever, right? And so I'll be dealing with that. So I think that one of the reasons why that particular part of the product was so successful back then is because there was such a great connection between understanding what you guys, what the ad ops needs, and also what we could try and develop very quickly and take to market. So that was my background, once again, in ad ops.
Thank you, guys. So we've got some prepared questions that came in from the feedback survey that we sent out, which I think many people in the room here today filled out for us a couple of months ago. So we've got some prepared questions. They're a bit challenging. If anything that our practice session went by, all I've got to do is try and keep Tim on a bit of a leash. We also have 2 roving mics, lovely Lorraine and Keita. So please start thinking of the questions you want to pose to these guys. What do you want to know that you haven't already heard today? So the first question is really for the whole panel to discuss and see how far they get with it. Ad ops, career or not, discuss.
Funny, I'm talking again. Okay. So I've said it before, and I saw somebody retweeted it quite recently. Yes, I think that ad ops is dead, as it was known 14 years ago. So therefore, that particular role I think is dead, but it is career. So I started in ad ops, and I think that in our company, there are about 5 jumps between when you walk in the door, strictly as a grad, all the way up to taking over my role. And the goal is to find a career path all the way from the beginning, all the way to the director of the company.
I guess I disagree with you in the sense that ad ops is dead, but I totally agree with you in terms of the way that you've structured your team and what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. I think that is a fundamental change of what we need to do within the industry. It's gone to the data entry stuff like I was talking about before, and it's more around moving away from delivering from sort of clicks and impressions, and as Ario talked about it before, it's all about return on investment or return on objective. And so it's how can we then better use data, and how can we then bring people on board that are analytical by nature, and can sort of look at sort of the campaign and the objectives it's trying to achieve, and then deliver on that. But then also then have the confidence to be able to then sort of share that internally, and have the confidence to be able to share that externally with the customers. Because I think at the end of the day, media agency, publisher, we're all sort of out there to try and sort of achieve the same thing, and that's a better return on investment for the customer.
I probably have a slightly different view on it too. I don't think that look, I think it's changed, but I also think that, like what I discovered from when I started this company 3 years ago versus when I was trafficking 15 years ago, is that the base challenges of what people face on a day-to-day basis hasn't really changed in terms of dealing with issues and having to actually fulfil what's being sold, whatever format that is. And that if your ad ops team isn't working properly, then the rest of the business falls over. So, your relationship with your customers becomes strained, it's really hard to meet your budgets, you lose confidence, and therefore people won't commit extra money to you. So needing to actually make sure that whatever format it takes, you still have the people who can fulfill that and build relationships internally and externally and make the whole business look good, I think is still a really critical part. So I don't think it's dead. I think it changes, and I think you need to be adaptable, but I still think that the function will go on.
Let me just come back in again a second. When I say it's dead, guys, what I'm saying is that in our company we have no role open for someone who's going to come in, upload campaigns, upload creative, upload pixels, and then go home. Okay, that has expired. That we've evolved. We've moved on past that. So we don't have ad ops, right? Is a very limiting term by itself, right? It's limiting you to just doing operations, right? Just doing the heavy lifting. What I'm saying is that we're evolving past that, and we're getting into optimization and strategy, and we are solving problems, absolutely. Otherwise, we have strained relationships with clients. But we're not just solving it because we know what the frame rate for a flash creative is supposed to be, or it's looping more than 3 times. They're not the challenges that we're having anymore.
So a little bit of a follow-up, guys, based on what you've just said, and maybe bring Kenan in a little bit as well. So when they are an ad ops person, whether it's in the traditional role or something that's much more agile and sort of organic in terms of being almost a trader on the buy side, etc., when they get the opportunity to move, should they stick or should they twist? Should they stay or go? What would you recommend?
Look, first off, I do think it's an exciting space to be in. I definitely agree with Tim. I mean, from a recruitment point of view, The whole space is really, really interesting. It's definitely something that's keeping us very busy at the office over the last 18 months especially. I agree with Tim in the sense that I think traditional ad ops is definitely dying. If you look at the way the industry is changing and evolving, 2 years ago programmatic didn't really exist, and now you look at it and you look at real-time bidding and you look at everything else that's coming off of that. It's changing and it will continue to change.
Okay. So Andrew, going back to what you were saying a little bit earlier, why do you think that ad ops as a career and as a sort of vocation actually matters, and what would you like to see it sort of push into?
I think sort of why it sort of matters. I was putting a bit of more detailed thought into this last night, and it's really around the opportunities it presents. You think of then, you guys are in the room. I come from a publisher background, so particularly in that sort of space, as a team, we deal with so many different corners of the business. So whether it be technology, sales, editorial, ad tech, ad product. You get exposure and experience to so many different sort of parts of the business, and therefore then there's so much opportunity there for you to develop skills outside of day-to-day sort of trafficking. You get project management skills, you get change management skills, process development. So you're able to then, if you make yourself sort of the obvious choice, really sort of hone those skills, and then if ad ops isn't for you sort of longer term, you've then got the ability to use those skills and transfer them to other areas. It's certainly, what I've done in my career. Like I said, I started off in sales, was in ad operations. I've moved out of operations for a little while.
I think that sometimes people in ad ops don't necessarily understand how valuable their knowledge is and how much of a broad base that can provide across a multitude of different areas. And I think in a lot of cases it's just a matter of speaking up and actually realising that the attention to detail and the in-depth knowledge you've got on how things work, what works well for what sorts of customers, what parts of networks work well, how different clients work, and actually then taking that and using that in different areas is hugely important. But I think that people just, in a lot of cases, don't necessarily, I think partly because of that sort of old school view that it's not as senior a job or that other people may know better, they don't necessarily think that if you speak up you may find that you'll go a lot further than you might satisfy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also think it comes down to the managers of the operations teams within the business. It's down to them to internally promote their teams and the skill and the expertise that they bring. Certainly now as the role evolves, I think there's a massive role to play for the operations team, both educating internally, but also educating externally. We've had a few jokes around creative agencies and things like that sort of today, but I really do think as an industry there's a real opportunity there for us to go out and sort of help bring them along. I've sort of used this joke internally a few times. My wife's a graphic designer, and so if I gave her our specs and asked her to read them and build something for me, she'd just be, whatever, I'm just going to go and build it and then hope that it's right. And generally that's sort of what happens. So it's down to us as publishers in the market to make those documentations and sort of better for the audience. But I think a big part of it is around sort of internal education, particularly working for News Corp, predominantly a print business. There's a massive education piece. People coming from a print background, just because they haven't been exposed to it, they just don't get it. They don't understand why they can't submit their ad at 5 o'clock a day before it goes live like they do with a print ad and expect it to run sort of smoothly. So I think it's just down to the managers as well as education.
So Tim, does the role of ad ops does the profile of ad ops need to change?
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, I'll go back to the comment that I made a little while ago, which was the profile of an ad ops person, if you want to give it that label, was very much of an introvert, a dozen years ago, and now they're all extroverts. The people that have been, our teams and the people that I meet. A great example is that a dozen years ago, if I tried to get one of them to come down to the pub for a drink on a Friday, it was just like, oh, do I have to? And now I got an email, just while we're sitting here, from the head of ad ops saying, hey, we've been invited down by one of the DSPs to all fly down to Flemington for Melbourne Cup. and going, oh, okay, great. So they're all leaving the office. So I'm finding it hard to get them to stay in the office now. So, and this is and I just want to also hone in on something a bit more serious as well, which is we've introduced a part in the process, and once again, this is not ad operations, this is optimization management. A part of the process whereby when the brief comes in, there's an RFP process where they have to tick a box and say, yeah, we actually do have 10 million males in Sydney who like sports, and we can hit those numbers on the brief. Otherwise, we'll say no to the brief in day one. So they do have a lot of very valuable information, which is what I think he is saying, and that information wasn't being heard. But now, with their nature, they're both driven and they're extroverts and they're technically minded. So yeah, I think it's changing the profile.
So Tim, a little bit of a follow-up question as well. In your opinion, and then maybe invite comments from the rest of the team, in your opinion, has the AdOps profile changed? And if it has it changed for the better?
Oh yeah, God, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're not devolving. We're not falling back into cavemen here. No, we're evolving, and we're evolving into people who are. You guys are all like-minded beings, right? You've all come to this place here because you have a passion for excellence, right? And that's the reason why you're here. And that continues moving forwards. But you're also evolving to want to have more tools. What we're saying to all the guys who work in our team is that for every month you invest with us, we give you a bullet point, a dot point on your CV, right? It's an exchange. You're spending time with us, we're giving you money, but you're winning, we're winning out on that. So we need to give back more. And we're giving back a bullet point on your CV for every month you invest with us. And that's how I think we need to think about it. We have to expand your skill sets. The person that I'm hiring today as an optimization manager, we call it, the next optimization manager, one of those people will actually be the director of operations in a company, be running the company in 6 to 8 years' time. I need to think of that when I'm hiring the person, always.
Any comments, guys? Okay, so Kenan, give us the recruiter's perspective then we're going to open up for some questions from the floor. What do you see in the industry? If someone's in an AdOps role, they want to make a move, what do you see as being their opportunities from a recruiter's perspective?
So the transferable skills in the AdOps space, if that's what we're going to continue to call it, are immense. What Tim and Amy said is very, very true. It's not what it used to be. It is now all about data and analytics and project management and campaign management and client services. So there's all these skills that people are taking away from their current roles that they wouldn't have done 10 years ago. There also used to be this thing where people from a publisher couldn't move to an agency and people from an agency couldn't move to the client side, and I think that's all changing and evolving as well. I think, especially in Australia, the skill set is becoming much more recognisable outside of the company that you work at. We've always struggled, with the whole agency client side thing, but the gap is definitely narrower now. In terms of where can AdOps take you, I mean, it's $1 million question really in the sense that the industry is still evolving so much, and I think it will still look very, very different again in the next kind of 2 to 5 years. So depending on where technology takes us, I think depends on where people can go. But I mean, if you work in AdOps, you can work in a publisher, you can work for a broadcaster, you can work for a media agency, you can work for a very data-centric business. I mean, there are some clients that we're working with now who are merging their businesses, so they're not just AdOps, they're also data-driven businesses, and I think the two come hand in hand now. In terms of career progression, you start at the bottom and you work your way up. I think that's still the same, but I think there's also an opportunity to step up much quicker than maybe in the past within this industry. You look at programmatic, and because it's only been around for a few years, I mean, we've placed people who started out in search 4 or 5 years ago who are now MDs of programmatic businesses. And that's A, because they had the transferable skills, but B, they showed the aptitude to learn that space as quickly as possible and do their best in that space. So I think the opportunities are endless, and I think it really is down to hard work and how quickly you want to learn a new technology or that new space, rather than resisting what is to come in the future.
Thank you, guys. Okay, so we're going to open. We've got about 5 minutes left. A few questions from the floor. All right. Oh, sorry. We'll go to Larry and then we'll go next.
Sorry about that. I guess a bit of the crystal ball magic time. If you were to tell the audience a year in the future, looking back on today, what would be the one thing that they should be doing to either build the experience or to communicate to people like yourselves to show that they've done that initiative to be able to leap into that new position? Just that one thing that would really shine. I
think you need to, if you're serious about it and you're keen to grow and develop, you've got to spend time on it. It's plain and simple. So I would recommend, if you haven't already, try and find a good mentor and spend time on your development. So I have, and as nerdy as this probably sounds, I have a document that I update regularly. I set some time aside for it once a month. Any sort of articles that I see, or if I've had a meeting with somebody that might have inspired me or may have done something or handled a situation well, I'll sort of take notes of that. I try and sort of be a sponge where possible, and regardless of whether up, below, sideways, if they're doing something well, learn from it and try and sort of build it into your toolbox. So I just recommend that you put time aside to really try and become more self-aware and look at trying to sort of plug the gaps of the direction you want to go in. Don't necessarily focus on a job title, focus on the experience and the benefit you'll be able to bring to your role.
Can I echo one thing on that as well, which I think is great. I love your OCD, I think it's fantastic. One thing I want to add is that I'll give you 3 things which are really going to help you, okay? And once again, the TED Talk, the 7 things from this is one of those things. Here are 3 things that will help you, okay? And this is a quote directly from the WPP chairman, Dave Moore. Okay, here we go. Number 1 is drive. Number 2 is drive. And guess what number 3 is? Yeah, drive, okay? And the idea is you can't hire someone, you can't instill drive into someone. You've either got it or you don't got it, right? Now, the idea with drive is that if you don't have it, then you've got to think about passion. And passion is, every day you've got to do what you love and you love what you do, right? That's the reciprocal nature of passion. But if you don't have drive for your business, don't worry about being in the business. Change jobs. But if you've got drive, that's the thing. A year from now, looking back on today, what they should be getting, drive, which is also the passion you're talking about with the following up on the notes.
Okay, go on.
I had been thinking about this quote, which is maybe correctly or incorrectly sometimes attributed to Richard Branson, but then you kind of encapsulated it before we said, I asked you to build an ad server and you went and figured it out. And we do this all the time because we deal with all different technologies and things being thrown at us every day, and people are like, can you do it? You go, yes I can. And then you go and figure it out and you make it work and you find your way through it. And that's where I think you can make a difference.
Mine's kind of a 2-part question. A lot of what you guys have been talking about today is adding value and driving those sorts of conversations with clients. So the first question, I guess, is ops a threat to sales? Or will our role evolve to include sales? And then the second question is, how do we maintain that consultative approach without damaging the sales-client relationship? Because I know they're quite precious about those sorts of relationships.
Great question.
Me again? Okay. So in terms of then the difference between sort of a sales and an ops role, I don't think there's a threat to either, because I think while there's some crossover in the skill set that you need, add ops becoming a little bit more extroverted and confident and things like that. Generally, you'll find that salespeople don't have the technical sort of understanding and experience that you guys have got. So I guess they've got the best of both worlds. So I think there's sort of a more longer term, there should be more of a split. So sales sell, ops deliver. And at the moment, particularly within news, there's still some grey area in that sort of space. And then, sorry, what was the second part of your question?
How do we not damage that relationship? Because we want to talk to the clients to add value, but sales want to be the experts, not ops. They don't want ops there because I feel like they think the client will just end up going to ops.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, good. That's good. I think that's a good thing. Yeah.
That's how I got into sales.
That's how I got into sales. I went from ops to sales and used ops knowledge and kind of learned sales skills afterwards. I think actually that if you can build a strong enough relationship with your salespeople to prove that you're not a threat to them, but you can actually complement their offering and make them look better and go in as a team. So I think it's really important for ops people to be part of those conversations with sales and to go to meetings with clients, because I think it's good for you to hear what the clients say, and it's good for you to understand what gets thrown at sales and the conversations that they have to have. But I think that you can also support them and make them look better, so they don't have to go, I don't know, I'll get back to you. Between you cover off all of the questions and you look like a really good easy unit. So it's about building a relationship with sales internally first, and then kind of showing how you can add value and going out together.
So just one more thing on that as well. I think any account manager, be it sales or otherwise, there's always going to be a salesy element anyway. But people define sales in very different ways. There's sales where you're picking up a phone and making cold calls and driving new business. There's the relationship sales where you're just making sure clients are signing up year on year with their contracts. But then as an account manager in a media agency or a publisher, your job is to cross-sell and upsell and make sure those relationships continue to be happy. And I think any sales guy or girl that pushes you away from that, they're stupid, because you're adding value to what they do, and like Amy said, at the end of the day, you're making them look better. So don't be scared to speak up and voice that opinion. Was it you that said earlier, Tim, just about those that do really, really well in their career are the ones that do speak up. So, obviously don't burn bridges, but don't be afraid to air your view as well.
I don't know, we're going for time, but I think it's a great question, because we've always had the sales guys saying it's their fault that the creative didn't work, and the creative guy, it's their fault that they booked the wrong campaign. And so the first thing we did with our team is we sit them together, so that there's a Max, there's an MOC, and a Mindshare team, and they all work together, and they all go to movies together. They go to meetings together, but they probably go to movies together. But seriously, they're never at the desks. But the point, I think the other one is to answer your question is, I don't look good unless my 2IC looks good, right? And it's the same thing between the sales and the ops team, and he doesn't look good unless his person below his team leader. So that's the way I think we try to get away with holding the relationships tight.
Very important point, and on that we'll have to wrap it up. Thank you very much, everybody. Please join me. Okay, now I'm going to hand over to Gay and be ready. Those of you who have completed the AdOps certification